Let's discuss this further with Omer Ozkizilcik, a security analyst and a non-residential fellow at the Atlantic Council, and he joins me from Ankara. Thank you for being with us on the program. Let me first get your thoughts on these most recent developments with the new administration's merging the armed opposition groups under the Defense Ministry.
So what we see now is that the monopoly of violence in Syria is being neutralized, and that there is a huge attempt to establish this new Syrian army working quite well. And this is not by a coincidence, because what's happening now is that former rebels are coming all together, and that they are joining force is a product of the understanding between Turkey and the new government in Syria to establish this, because most of these forces and units are former Turkish-backed Syrian rebels and other Syrian rebels who work with them together. So there is already a history that they have worked together with each other. And this new establishment of a new army in Syria will be hugely important to make the new era in Syria peaceful and workable, and to make the transition as smooth as possible. However, what's quite interesting to know and to notice is that who is not involved in this, and who is not involved, it's the YPG terror group. And this is a clear indication that the new government in Damascus, do not see them as a part of Syria, and definitely do not see them as part of the Syrian army.
They do seem to be closing that power vacuum more and more with time, but there are still worries on how foreign influences could destabilize the situation in Syria. The new foreign minister, al-Jolani, has warned Iran against spreading chaos in Syria. Walk us through Iran's current position and if they're seen as a threat by the new administration.
So the relationship between Iran and the new government in Syria will probably remain hostile for a longer period of time, at least until Iran has a huge policy shift. Because what we have seen is that the Iranian Supreme leader has basically called for an uprising in Syria, and it's demanded the Syrian people to rise up and to act against the new government. And this is actually the loss of Iran, because Iran and Shia Crescent and its militias who rampage the region, they have lost. And the biggest loser here in all of this is Iran, after the Assad regime itself. And we see that the years of torture, years of killing, years of violations by Iran-based Shia militias has a bad taste that's been left over. And actually what needs to be done is Iran to be held accountable for all of the crimes they have committed in Syria. And in contrast, what Iran should have done is to apologize, to try to amend ties. But what we see is quite opposite. Iran is still continuing with the old rhetoric. Iran actually demanded money from Syria back. And all of these Iranian speeches and rhetoric just show one thing: Iran is the biggest loser, and Iran is definitely not interested in peace in Syria. And what we have seen, Iran has stated that all of its efforts in Syria are to protect the shrine of Sayyidina Zainab. And we see now that the shrine of Sayyidina Zainab is being protected, is being cleaned by the Syrians and by the new authorities. But Iran did not care about this. So all of the rhetoric in terms of the religious well and rhetoric to fight against Israel was just a rhetoric to mask the Iranian expansionist agenda.
Right, and you touched on Turkey's role in this transition process. It's a key player. It's seen as a key player, not only because of the support that it's provided over the years to Syrians, but of course because it's actively working to eliminate one of the biggest threats to stability in Syria, being the YPG terror group, which you touched on as well. Talk to us a bit about the chaos that the YPG terror group has essentially inflicted, not only as a threat to Turkey, but also to the Syrians, the locals on the ground.
So what's clear is here we see that when the new government forces of Syria entered the region of Manbij, we have seen that people rose to the streets, that they have celebrated, that they came out in mass demonstrations in support of the new government forces. And there was huge celebrations because the people are tired of being oppressed by the YPG. And we have seen people demonstrating in the streets in Raqqa, in Deir ez-Zor, in Hasaka, in other areas. And we have seen people rising up with their own arms against the YPG because people do not want them. And the people who do not want them have unfortunately been attacked. They were shot at by the YPG. There were some civilians killed. Peaceful demonstrators were even killed. And all of this shows the days of the YPG are numbered. The project of the YPG under the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces cannot survive this. And we see now unfortunately, the insistence by the YPG terror group to not accept the new reality in Syria, because there is actually an olive branch being reached out. This olive branch is lay down your weapons, disband yourself, send all of the foreign fighters away out of Syria, and become a political party, engage politically in Syria. But unfortunately, the terror group still and terror, as we have seen today in the car bomb attack in Manbij, in which they tried to kill civilians and harm the civilian peaceful atmosphere in Manbij city, as they are still angry about why the civilians cheered and celebrated for being freed of the YPG terrorist control.
Okay, Omer Ozkizilcik, thank you so much for being with us here on TRT World and sharing that analysis with us.